Okay. Hello, listening audience. Welcome to the 2021 Virtual Spring Nature Festival that's sponsored by the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. I'm Tom Romito and your host for this program. I'm a board member of the Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, and we are the fundraising arm of the refuge. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization established in 1997 to support Ohio's only national wildlife refuge complex with youth development, public use projects, and most recently land acquisition and restoration. The refuge is located in the western basin of Lake Erie, halfway between Port Clinton and Toledo, in some of the most critical wetland habitats in the world. If you're interested in learning more about us and what to do, please use the link that I have placed in the chat box. Now, I'm hoping that you can see it. If you cannot see the link for our website, which is www.friendsofottawanwr.org, please let me know by putting a comment in the chat room that you can't see it, if you would please. Anyway, this link will point you in the right direction to become a member, a volunteer, and make a tax-deductible donation to support our work and shop on our online nature store. Okay, people are saying that they don't see the link. So we need to change that before we get going. Rebecca, can you add that link to the chat now?
Yeah, and I posted my links in.
Okay, Rebecca, can you add that link to the chat now? All right, we'll do it. We'll do it in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm joined by Ken Ostermiller. Kent is the eBird hotspot reviewer for Ohio and manages the Birding in Ohio website, which we're also going to put in that chat room. And that is hosted by the Ohio Ornithological Society, which is another nonprofit organization in Ohio. Ken has graciously joined us to share his program entitled An Introduction to Using eBird. I met Ken about 10 years ago when I met him at a meeting of the Kirtland Bird Club at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and he introduced eBird to us. And as far as I'm concerned, Ken's the father of eBird in Ohio. Now, before I begin, I ask that you all stay muted to minimize background noise for our presenter. And please type any questions in the chat box. Well, Ken, I'd like you to take this time to explain to people what you want them to do regarding questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. There's a reactions bar link at the bottom of the Zoom window. And when you click on that, you get a chance to either clap or do a thumbs up, but there's also a way to raise your hand. If you click on raise your hand, we'll see that you have a question you'd like to ask verbally. I'm also going to ask you to use raise your hand a couple times as I figure out how familiar many of you are with eBird.
Very well, thank you, Ken. I want to announce happily that everybody can now see those links, Ken, because I figured out that I merely had to change the option from everyone in the waiting room to everyone in the meeting. And listening audience, if you will pardon me, I want you to understand this is my second experience as host, and I'm getting better at it as we go. So without further ado, I'm turning this program over to Ken. I'm going to mute myself now. So Ken, you've got it.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share a screen with you. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to see you here this evening. Tom's introduced me, and I've put up some ways to find the eBird website. It's real simple. It's ebird.org. I'm also going to be talking about the Birding in Ohio website, which is birdinginohio.com. And I got a question before this event about the smartphone apps. And if you want to get the eBird smartphone apps, you need to search for eBird Mobile or for submitting checklists, or eBird Merlin, which is the bird identification program. We'll talk more about those as we go through the evening. I'm kind of curious. Though that information is in the chat also, these links are, so you can find it there. I'm interested how many of you are familiar with eBird already. Would you raise your hand if you're a person a birder who uses eBird all the time? I'd like to get a sense for how many of you are using eBird all the time. I see a couple hands up. See some thumbs up too. That's fine. Great. You could put your hand down now, and I'm going to ask those who have an eBird account, but you have questions about it, or you need help using it, or you don't use it all the time. How many of you are in that situation? I'm seeing a few. All right. All right, so it looks like we've got a good mix of people who are familiar with eBird. I designed this as a basic introduction to eBird. Feel free to stop me at any point. And if you have questions, and we'll try to answer them as we go along rather than saving them all up for the end. And you can put questions in the chat, you can raise your hand. We may be a small enough group that you could even unmute yourself and ask your question. We'll see how that goes. Well, let's take a look at the eBird website. And I'm going to you can easily find eBird in a Google search. If you search for eBird, it comes up really high. And if you'll just click on that link, it'll take you right to ebird.org. eBird is sponsored by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and by the National Audubon Society. It's a free service for us to use, and it's a really great citizen science project. The website has several sections to it. They're here across the top of the screen. The eBird link always takes you back to this home page, and there's information here on the home page for you, but there's lots more information in these other tabs. Many of them you can use even if you don't have an eBird account. You can explore information in eBird. There's a science tab, about, a news tab, help. All of those you can access even if you don't have an eBird account. But if you want to submit data to eBird or view data you've submitted, you need to have an account. Let's go to the About tab and look at what eBird does for us. There are 5 main things that eBird tries to do. One, it allows us to find more birds. We can find birds that are near us when we're home birding or when we're traveling. eBird helps us keep track of the birds we see. When I first started birding, we were keeping track of the birds we saw in the back of a Peterson field guide, putting when we saw birds for the first time in the checklist in the back. Later, I got a printed life list that I tried to record things in. And when computers came along and I got interested in databases, I tried to build my own database. But when eBird came out, I knew right away that was the best way I had ever found to keep track of what we'd see. Is someone asking a question? I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are we okay? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Are we all right?
Ken, what do you need to know?
I was getting a lot of feedback from someone. Did someone have a question?
There was some issue about the use of the reaction bar, not seeing the raised hand. It's the only question that I can determine from looking at the chat room.
Yeah, it looks like Edward Lux, do you have a question? You got your hand up?
Sorry, no, I just left it on by mistake.
Okay.
Yes, if you're going to ask Ken a question, you must unmute.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back to sharing then.
Very well.
All right. eBird lets us explore the latest sightings from around the world. In using eBird, we joined the world's largest birding community. And for many of us, this is a very excellent way to contribute to science and conservation. There's a short 3-minute video about eBird that I'd like to play for you now. It's here on the About page, and we'll take just a few minutes to look at it.
Every day, millions of people around the world enjoy watching birds and recording their sightings.
What if there were a way to take all of these observations, yours, ours, everyone's, and put them all in one place?
If we could do this, we would fundamentally transform not just birding, but science and conservation.
From this idea emerged eBird. Put simply, eBird is a way for anyone around the world to store their birding observations, their photos, their sound recordings, and make them available to educators, scientists, and birders. It's incredibly easy to use, and it's incredibly powerful. All you do is let us know where you went birding, when, how far you traveled, and what you saw. It's powerful because hundreds of thousands of people all around the world are doing it, and it's growing. eBird already safeguards 500 million sightings, information that allows all of us to understand the movements and needs of birds at global scales. eBird maintains your lists for you and shares them with other birders from around the world. By sharing, it's now possible for anyone, anywhere, to find your target birds and the best birding hotspots any time of the year. Before eBird, there was no way to comprehensively understand species. By combining your sightings with remote sensed habitat data from NASA, we're able to generate species distribution models that provide an unparalleled view of where and when birds are in the landscape. Scientists and students all over the world are now able to use eBird datasets for their research at a variety of spatial scales. These observations help inform better conservation strategies, opening the door to the future of bird conservation. And this, with the help of millions of people using eBird each year, we are creating a free open access system that's easy to use, fun, and rewarding. Rewarding for birders, for scientists, for conservationists, and ultimately the birds themselves. Go to eBird.org or download eBird Mobile to get started, all for free.
By joining eBird, you're joining a global team of people that share your passion for birds. Be a part of it.
I must be muted. No, I'm not.
Ken, I unmuted you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
To sign up for eBird, you click on create an account, and all you have to provide is your name. You choose a username, a password, and your email address. eBird does ask us to use our real names so that we know who birders are. There are some privacy options, which I'll show you, but your email address is only shared with eBird reviewers who may need to contact you if you submit a checklist about which there are questions, or you submit a hotspot suggestion to me. I'll get back to you about that. I'm going to sign in to my account. And you'll see that when you're signed in, you've added information about your eBird account to the page. You have some options for maintaining your account in your account name here at the top. And one of them is preferences. And you can choose things like whether to see just the common name or the scientific name or both on birds. eBird is translated into many, many languages. There are some birders who want to be anonymous. And if you want to be anonymous, the way to do that is to then check anonymous eBirder. This means that your name will show up as anonymous eBirder, and you'll be opted out of some eBird functions. You also have a chance if you want to say you've seen, you want to, for some reason, hide your data from displays. You have choices for doing that. So this is where you control your preferences in eBird up here in account. You can add some information to your profile if you wish to. This is an account with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and gives you access not only to eBird, but to the Macaulay Library and several other birding related websites. Well, let's go back and see what eBird can do for us. let's take a look at how it can help us keep track of the birds we've seen. You've got a basic summary of what you've seen on the home page, but if you click on My eBird, you get quite a bit more information about what you've submitted. And it keeps track of things by major region. If I zoom out, this is my world list. If I want to see it by region of the world or by the countries I've been in, you can click on a country. And it keeps track of what you've seen in each state. So here's my Ohio list. We've seen 127 species so far this year in Ohio, and it keeps track of what you've seen every year you've submitted lists. It also keeps track of what you've seen by county. So I live in Medina County. This is what I've seen for this year. It also keeps track of how many species I've seen in the current month. It's very, very powerful. And I use it for things like, have you ever wanted to know what your feeder list looks like? Well, I can do that by finding that list in eBird, and I can do that by going to sighting lists. And we live on Leroy Road. And it's showing me now the list of all the birds we've seen here on our property. I was excited when we got to 100. Now we're up to 114. And it allows you to do some things like, if I wanted to know, I just put up my hummingbird feeder, and I'm wondering, when do the hummingbirds show up here? Well, I can view all the sightings of hummingbirds that we've submitted to eBird. And if I scroll down this list, when in 2020 did the first one show up? Let's see here. There it is, May 4th. Okay, how about 2019? When was the first one? When did it? May 3rd, okay. 2018, May 3rd. Are we seeing a pattern here? I think we are. So I think I got my hummingbird feeder up too early, but maybe I'll get an early hummingbird. This is just one example of the kind of data that eBird helps to keep track of. Now I'm going to stop there and ask if there are any questions about looking at my eBird. Is there anything anyone would like me to demonstrate about it? Is there anything in the chat about that? The
only one in the chat right now is how to put in historical lists, like all those we have on paper and stuck in the backs of books and all of that.
All right, I will get to that when I go through how you submit a checklist.
And we just got another one to quickly walk us through that again.
To how I found this hummingbird list, is that? Find a specific, yes, we'll look at how to find a specific species in a region. And someone wants to know about adding pictures. Okay, we'll do that as we go along. So let's get out of My eBird. That's something you can look at when you've submitted some checklists. You have to put some data into eBird, but it's an amazing thing that it keeps track of all that for us. Now, the Explore tab is where you look at data that other birders have submitted to eBird, you and other birders. And there are many different ways to explore data. You can look at a specific species. You can look at data by region, very similar to the what I was showing you about the United States or the state of Ohio, but it's not just your sightings, it's all the sightings. You can look at species maps. You can look at photos and sounds that birders have submitted. You can explore hotspots. You can get bar charts, which is something I want to show you because that's a great way to see what birds you might see at a particular location. eBird also allows you to set up some alerts so that if there's particular birds you want to see, eBird will send you an email when a bird has been seen near you, and you can define what near you means when you set up the alert. It's a very, very full program of information that you can get about the birds. Now, let's say you were interested in knowing what birds might I see at, well, let's say the boardwalk at McGee Marsh. One great way to do that is to get a bar chart for it. Now, I'm going to show you this is the most complicated way to get a bar chart, but it works for any location. You have to choose the state you're in. So we're in Ohio, and the boardwalk is a hot spot. We click continue, we get a list of all the hot spots in Ohio. So I'm gonna search for McGee Marsh. And I'm gonna see, there's the boardwalk right there. So I'm gonna go back up to the top of the page and click continue. And since there's a lot of data at this hotspot, it's going to take a minute for eBird to calculate everything. But what we've got now is a bar chart showing when the birds are seen at this hotspot through the months. And you'll see that for each month there are 4 sections, and the wider the green bar, the more checklists report seeing that bird. So let's go down. I'm going to find the warblers. And we're in the third week of April right now. And you can see that the warblers are just starting to come. So that if you wanted to see a orange-crowned warbler, probably not going to see, you might. And you can see they're here for a while, then they go off to their breeding territories, and then they come back in the fall. Now, one nice thing about the bar chart is that it has other links to other sections. And this little link with a, I don't know what to call it. It's a map link. And let's look at something that's maybe around already. Now we know yellow-rumped warblers are showing up, so let's use that as an example. It's not a very rare bird. I've clicked on the map and it's taking us to the species maps that are also a part of the Explore. And it's now showing me a map of the area, and the locations that have seen that bird within the last 30 days are in red. The ones in blue have the bird has been reported, but it was reported previously. You can zoom in on this map. You can see the markers with a little flame are the hot spots. The other markers are personal locations. You can see people are using both the hot spots, and a lot of people create personal locations when they bird at McGee. And is this the hot, is this? Yeah, this is the boardwalk. So someone saw the yellow rump at the boardwalk on the 16th, which is the last day it was open. And this is actually a list of all the sightings of yellow rump warblers at the boardwalk. That's every single checklist that has reported a yellow rumped warbler. It took a little while to load because that's a lot of data that eBird has collected. Let's go back to my bar chart. Again, it's having to build the list. And let's pick a warbler that's not here yet. Probably if I click on black-throated green, see, we're not getting many locations. But what if I switch this to Athens County? Well, we can go anywhere in Athens County. Now you see, in southern Ohio, the black-throated you can see where they're being seen.
Ken, may I insert a question?
Sure.
A participant has just asked, is there a way to see a picture of what the bird looks like? Could you use the black-throated green that you're talking about as an example?
Sure. Let's go back to Explore. We can take a look at the black-throated green. And here's what's in eBird about this particular species. You can even listen to its song. It gives you its range map, lots of pictures of it. These are photos that birders have submitted to eBird. These are audio recordings that birders have made. These are videos of the bird.
And can you give us the sound of the black-footed green?
Yeah, did you hear it when I played it or not?
I did not. Maybe others did, but I did not.
Do you hear that? It's not real loud.
Again, I do not. Does anybody hear that? Oh, others are saying they hear it. Sounds fine.
Okay, good.
Don't go by me, Ken.
Great, good. Thanks for those questions. This is the way I prefer to do this, is to follow what interests you. Now, someone wanted to know how you'd add your own pictures. So let's take a minute to look at how you submit data to eBird. I'm gonna click on the Submit tab, and I'm gonna pretend I was birding close to home here in Medina County. So you have to get eBird into at least your state to get this map up. And I'm gonna zoom into Chippewa Lake, which is real near our house. And let's say I was birding at the Chippewa Lake boat ramp. So the first thing you do when you're gonna submit a list is to choose where you're birding. Click continue. And then eBird wants to know what date you birded and an observation type. Let's assume I was birding yesterday. And let's say I was just doing a stationary count at the boat launch. And let's say I was there at 10 a.m. And I was there for 40 minutes. And 2 of us were there. You can put whatever you want in the checklist comments. Some people put the temperature, whatever you'd like to record about your sighting. You click continue. And eBird presents you with a list of the birds that are, I've got them grouped by most likely, which shows me first in the list all the birds that are most likely to be there based on checklists that have been submitted in that area. And then it has infrequent birds, and then all the birds that have not been reported. So this helps narrow the list down to make it easy. And gosh, there were 200 Canada geese there. There were 40 mallards, 5 bufflehead, gosh, I'm going to say there were 5,000 ruddies, because I want to show you what that does. There were double-crested cormorants. Well, you get the idea. We can continue to enter data. Now, if, say I have a photo of a mallard to put in, you can add media, and there'll be, there. Since I don't do this often, this is where you do it. I'm gonna, these are the instructions for adding media to your list. You can also add details about your sighting of mallards. You can add information about age and sex if you wish to do that. Usually, I just count the birds. And eBird does want us to count or estimate the number of birds we see. And at first I found that kind of annoying because when we were first birding, we were just keeping a day list of species. And I found that by paying attention to the birds I've already seen that day, I'm a better observer of what's going on and how the birds interact with one another. It has made birding actually much more enjoyable for me to try to pay attention to how many birds I'm seeing.
Ken, I would like to interject two pertinent questions to your discussion right here.
Sure.
One participant asks, is it frowned upon to just list species seen and not actually list a specific count of each species seen that day?
You can put an X in to indicate the presence of a species. Those checklists are not as useful for scientific research, but you certainly can do that. And for some historical checklists, you really need to do that because you don't have a record of how many you saw. So it's acceptable. It's not the best practice, but it's acceptable. eBird's also going to ask you when you submit the list to answer this question. Are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify? Again, the lists where you can check yes to that are more useful for scientific research. But if you left off the cardinals and the robins on purpose, you have to check no here. But if you're reporting all the birds, nobody can report all the birds that are there. I don't think any birder is that good. But if you can list the birds that you were able to identify.
Ken, thank you for that answer. Another participant says, I only use the app and I don't see these features on the app to add pictures. And I believe the app means the smartphone. I'm not
right.
Sure.
The eBird mobile app at this point does not have the capacity to add sounds or photos. You have to submit your list from the app and then go to the website to add your photos.
Thanks for that, Ken.
There are lots of things that eBird Central would like to add to eBird, lots of things, and that's one of them, but it's more complicated than you can imagine to make it happen. Okay, now there was a question about historical, and let me go. I'm not going to submit, I'm going to try to submit this list because I got these 5,000 ruddy ducks on there. First of all, it says, well, let's say I can answer that yes. Now it's going to say, well, that's a high count. Please add comments and check complete. If they want information about how did you determine there were 5,000 ruddy ducks, and I'm going to say, it's just a typo. There really were only 30. Now, if I submit it, I'll submit this list, and I don't want to do that, but you get the idea. Let's go back. Someone asked about historical sightings. If you've got a list on paper from a trip you did in 1990, you're probably going to want to report that as a historical list, where birding was your primary purpose, but maybe you don't have the start time or exactly how long you birded there or the distance. If you have those things, you can use a traveling or stationary count to report it. But if you don't have all of they call this effort data, you can choose historical, and you're not required to enter for example, the time or the duration or the miles on those checklists. Sometimes you have a checklist of all the birds you saw in maybe a county. You can choose a county as your location. It's just any checklists that are submitted at the county level will go into your own eBird account, but those lists don't go into the eBird database for research purposes. For research, we really want as much of this effort data as we can get to make it useful for research. Now, are there any other questions that about submitting checklists? Good, we've got about 15 minutes left or 10 minutes left. So let me try to share a couple other things with you. Those of you from Ohio may know that I work with the Ohio Ornithological Society on a Birding in Ohio website. I created this because as the hotspot reviewer in Ohio, I wanted a way for us to get information about the hotspots as well as about the birds. So this is a database of information about the eBird birding locations in Ohio. And they're listed both by county or you can get an alphabetical list of all the birds. That's up here. If you find a location, you get alphabetical list. You can go to the county pages. There are lots of different ways to do this. And for example, if I click here on McGee Marsh Wildlife Area, this is the list of all the hotspots at McGee Marsh. And one of the things we've done here is to create links to create the bar charts for you. So you don't have to go through that convoluted system that eBird has. So if you want to see the birds, all of the birds that have been reported at McGee Marsh for the whole year, you just click there. And you can see it's not showing just the boardwalk, but all of the hotspots at McGee Marsh. And again, it's having to think quite a bit.
Very well, Ken. I have two questions coming in for you.
Sure.
One is about gender. Do you usually designate male, female, immature?
That is an option for you to indicate. You don't have to. Some birders do that. It's helpful to research again if you do. But personally, I'm not good I don't consider myself a good enough birder to do that consistently. So we basically just report the numbers of birds we see.
Real fine, Ken. Thank you. And also, how do I suggest a new hotspot in Pennsylvania?
All right, we could go there. Let's go back here. Sorry. To suggest a hotspot, you need to create a personal location for it. So let's say I'm going to go to my eBird, and you can edit your locations. This is a list of all my locations. I could sort by state, and Let's search for Pennsylvania. I don't have any for Pennsylvania. That's not possible because I lived in Pennsylvania. Huh, interesting. Well, let's assume I'll answer it for Arizona, and it would be the same for Pennsylvania. You simply click on manage the location. These with little people signs next to them are already hotspots. Any without it are personal locations. So you click on your personal location, and in editing it, there's suggest as a hotspot link. And you just click on suggest as a hotspot, and it will ask you, are you sure you want to do this? You say yes. And the hotspot reviewer from Arizona would get that as a suggestion. If you do this in Ohio, I will get back to you about your suggestion. Hotspot reviewers are all volunteers, and some of them really don't have the time to do that. Some of us who are retired have a bit more time to give to this. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm sure it does, Ken. Here's another one. Will you be reviewing what to use in the field? The website, eBird Mobile, eBird Merlin?
Right, I wanted to do that, and we've sort of run out of time, but let me quickly go to the help. There's a help page, getting started with eBird, and the suggestion is that you use eBird Mobile if you want to, in the field, to record your sightings. But if you're more comfortable recording it in a little paper notebook and you want to then submit them via the website, as I showed you here, that's as good a way to create your checklists. Either way works, but eBird Mobile is the app for submitting checklists on your phone. You can look at the eBird website in the browser on your phone. It's fully functional, but submitting checklists in your browser is very clunky. So if you want to use your phone for submitting checklists, go find eBird Mobile.
Real fine, Ken, thanks. I'm going to give you one more question and then we'll move to closure. What is the best way to report yard birds and how to designate location?
Many birders, me included, set up a personal location for your yard, and that's a great way to do it. I showed you an example of the records we have of the birds we've seen, and it's just using the basic submission, the way of submitting checklists are no different for your yard than from a hotspot.
All right, Ken, thank you.
Do it.
Here's one more. This is the last question I'll address. And is there a description of the physical boundaries of each hotspot? Do we count distant birds seen from a hotspot?
Right. In eBird, the locations are really a point on the map, and you tell eBird how far from that point you traveled by submitting traveling distance. So if you're choosing stationary, it's going to assume you saw the bird from that location. If you put traveling, it knows that you traveled. The app actually creates a track so that's added to your checklist, which gives the researchers even more data. hotspot, they would like to enable eBird to designate some of the locations as polygons. If that were easy to do, they would have already done it. It's just very complex to do it, but they have some polygons. For example, the Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge is defined as a polygon. And you can look at that back in, whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing there. Back in Explore, you can look at the National Wildlife Refuges. So this is, Ottawa's defined as a polygon. It spans 2 counties. So you can't submit checklists to it, but it keeps track of all the hotspots. And actually, this is data from hotspots and the personal locations within the refuge.
Okay, Ken, I'm going to ask you to hold there.
Okay.
We're at the top of the hour, and ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I'm thanking Ken for being our speaker. I want to point out that the 3 links I talked about are in the chat box. Rebecca, my backup host, has placed in the chat box the link to a survey we would ask that you take. It's very helpful to us. And if you take it, you will receive a coupon code for the Rookery online store. The Rookery store is the nature store at the Refuge Visitor Center. And there it is online. Also, I encourage you to go to the Seek Refuge Day link for the rest of the programs that are occurring this spring. There are about 20 of them left. Be sure to register for any that you want to attend. Now, if you register for any program, you'll get a recording in the email, just like you will for this recording. In a couple of days, you're going to see an email containing the recording of Ken's presentation. So I thank you for your time, your patience with us in working through this system. I'm going to